Welcome back, boys and girls, to Poppy and Rye. Today we're going to do Chapter 23, The Rescue Begins. How do we get to the lodge? Curly Doc asked after Poppy had given him and Thistle a lesson in the use of quills. We can swim, can you? Not really, Poppy admitted. When I went to the lodge before, I floated on a wood chip. The beavers leave all kinds of chips around, Thistle said. I'm sure we could find one big enough to carry the three of us. The trio crept down to the edge of the pond. A few beavers were about working. Don't let them see us, Poppy warned. Squatting down, the mice attempted to hide behind bushes. Only when Poppy was sure they were unnoticed did she and the others scout about in search of a wood chip. Thistle found one near a recently chewed stump. All agreed the thin, square flake would be large enough to carry the three of them. Quickly, they dragged it behind a bush and hid it, then searched out wood bits to use as paddles. Then they returned to the top of the hill. Better get some rest, Poppy suggested. As soon as it gets dark, we'll go. As far as she was concerned, all was ready, but the mice had been observed. Clara Canard saw them sniffing about the edges of the pond. Suspicious, she had watched intently, but was not certain what the mice were doing. She reported what she had seen to her dad, Mr. Canard. What do you think? She asked him. Don't know, he replied. Don't want to make a mountain out of a mouse hill. Still, you might have a point. Give them an inch, these mice take a mile. The mice I saw were looking for something. What do you think it was? Mr. Canard asked. I'm not sure. Did you block that vent hole? Piece of cake. Did you make another? Needle in a haystack. But look here, sweetheart, the less trouble, the better. We've been coasting along easy. We don't want to slip on a banana peel now. So, if you want to keep on watch, far as I'm concerned, that's frosting on the cake. With that, Mr. Canard swam away. Well, I don't like it, Clara said to herself. I'm going to patrol the pond tonight. The farewells Thistle and Curly Doc made to their family that night were brief and painful. The elder mice tried to be kind, but could do little to hide their apprehension. For their part of the youngsters, they tried to appear bold, but felt very uneasy. Poppy, uncomfortable with the family's disapproval, kept away entirely. It was dark when the three mice went down to the pond. The vine hung in a coil around Poppy's neck, like a life preserver. Once they located the wood chip they had hidden, they pushed it into the water and then jumped on. In moments they were afloat, moving slowly toward the lodge. The three mice knelt on the wood chip and paddled steadily. Thistle and Curly Doc were up front. Poppy was in the back. Now and again she stood tall and peered into the dark, keeping them on course. The beavers' main lodge, though visible, was far away. To the left, she called. To the right. Thistle and Curly Doc shifted their paddles accordingly. Other than normal night sounds, all was quiet. The moon kept slipping in and out behind clouds. A breeze from the north had begun to blow, bringing early hints of the autumn yet to come. It made the pond surface choppy. Thistle's whispered voice broke through the dark. I think I heard something. The mice stopped paddling. Poppy's ears twitched. She was not sure, but she too had caught a faint splashing sound off to her left. The noise, however, did not return. I think we're all right, she called, keeping her voice low. The three resumed their paddling. As they approached the log, Curly Dock whispered, "Is that it?" "I'm pretty sure," Poppy replied. "Which side should we aim for?" Thistle wanted to know. "It doesn't matter," Poppy said. "We'll be crawling to the vent hole on the top." "Let's go. Keep your voices low." They dipped their paddles and moved forward again. Even as they did, a great swell of water lifted their raft, causing it to slide back as if it were rolling down a hill. The next moment, Clara Canard, orange teeth glowing, rose up before them. "I thought I heard something," she barked. "What are you doing here? What are you trying to do?" "Back paddle!" Poppy yelled frantically and plunged her oar deep into the water as if she could scoop them clear. Thistle tried too, but with no more success. Worse, when she hauled back, the strain was so great her paddle snapped in two. Curly Dock, working frantically, only stirred the foaming waters. With the raft rocking wildly, Thistle slipped. She did manage to hang on by the tip of her paws, but her hold was precarious. Curly Dock, seeing her danger, attempted to reach for her, but lost his step on the listing raft and flipped over her head into the water. "Curly Dock!" Thistle screamed. She twisted to see where he had gone. He had vanished. Clara, meanwhile, swung herself completely around and lifted her tail. "Look out!" Poppy cried. Poppy saw Thistle attempt to draw her quill. It caused her to lose her grip, and she fell back into the water and disappeared. As the beaver's tail struck, Poppy clung to the raft. The tail hit the raft's front end, causing it to flip over and over like a catapult, flinging Poppy into the air. As she flew, she spread her legs wide, landing in the water on her belly with a splat. Stunned, she lay face down in the water. It was the vines still around her neck which kept her from drowning. Clara looked around. Seeing Poppy face down in the water, she assumed she was dead. As for the other two mice, she did not see them at all. She was sure they too had perished. With a satisfied grunt, the beaver dove beneath the water and headed for the entry hole to the lodge. Poppy, regaining consciousness, looked up. Giving her head a shake, she spat out water and called, "Thistle! Curly Dock!" Her voice was weak. There was no reply. She looked about. The beaver's lodge rose up before her. Giving a few feeble kicks, she moved close enough to reach out and grab hold of some of its branches. When she pulled at them, she came up against it. There she rested some more until her wind was completely restored. Only then did she crawl out of the water and onto the lodge. Turning, she gazed back over the pond. "Thistle," she called out. "Curly Dock." She thought she heard an answering cry, but when it did not repeat itself, she was sure her young friends had drowned. Drenched and forlorn, Poppy sat down, toying with the circle of vine by her side. Suddenly she reached for her quill. It too was gone. That meant she had no way to defend herself. Everything bad that could have happened had. What would she do, she told herself, was to go back and inform Valerian and Clover what had occurred. The mere thought of it made her groan. Why did she always have to bring bad news? It was all too ghastly. The next moment she realized that going back was not possible. Her raft was gone. She couldn't swim to shore. There was little choice but to press on and attempt to save Rye somehow. Poppy hefted the circle of vine. Though heavy, she flung it over her neck, then began to climb the side of the lodge. As she went, she began to cry. Why did Ragweed have to die? Why did Rye have to run away? Why did Erith and Clover and Valerian have to be angry with her? Why did Thistle and Curly Dock have to drown? Was everything her fault? It was all too much. Despite her anguish, Poppy continued up the side of the lodge. It was a hard climb. Her own distress, the rough nature of the lodge's construction, her sense of failure, all conspired to make the going difficult. Even so, she kept climbing constantly, slipping, banging her head, her knees. Her paws grew raw. More than once she had to stop and regain her breath as well as her composure. But up she went, crawling on, over, under, and around twigs, sticks, and logs, all the while slipping and sliding over mud that had stuck to her like glue. Sometimes the agony of it all made her whimper. And then, when she finally reached the top, she could not find the vent hole. She could hardly believe it. Back and forth over the top she crawled. All she found was mud and more mud. Something was wrong, changed. Gradually, Poppy began to grasp what must have happened. When she had visited Rye, she had left the vine dangling from the vent hole. The beavers must have discovered what she'd done and covered the hole with mud. If that was true, and it certainly seemed to be so, then short of swimming, there was no way for her to get into the lodge. Feeling defeated and alone, Poppy sat atop the lodge. Erith had fled back to Dimwood. Thistle and Curly Dock were gone, presumably drowned. Rye was imprisoned. Rye, how close he was, how impossible to reach. Her whole plan was a disaster. Poppy lay back and stared up at the few stars peeking out now and again from behind drifting clouds. I might as well be up there for all I can do, she thought. Exhaustion, fueled by sorrow and defeat, took hold. She kept telling herself she mustn't sleep, that she must do something, but her fatigue mixed with her melancholy state proved too powerful. She nodded off. That's the end of 23.